In today's lesson, we're going to be looking at how we can create this battery effect. So it's going to fill up the battery as soon as it loads. And of course, you can drag this to the left or right to fill up the battery some more. But I'm going to be showing you how we can fill an object with a certain caller so that you can get this nice effect in case you want to do so. And we can even refresh this and start it over again. So you'll notice that it's going to fill up the bar gradually. And it's also going to have the text fade in and provide this very nice effect. So if that interests you, let's get started by creating a new empty Xcode project. And the very first thing I want to do here is create a new SwiftUI view. And we're just going to go ahead and call this battery view. Now, the very first thing we have to do inside here is create a few variables such as a binding variable. And this is going to keep track of the progress, which will be of type double. Then we need to also specify a fill caller. What kind of caller do you want it to be filled with? And let the outline caller, in case you want to change it for light mode and dark mode, it's important that we can modify this later. And also we need to go ahead and type in @state private var opacity, because we want to give the text a nice opacity animation as soon as the view loads. So here we're going to set that initially to 0.0 and it must be a double. Now immediately we're going to get an error in the battery view preview. So here we need to go ahead and fill out the progress, the fill and the outline. And for the binding, we can just go ahead and provide a constant of 0.7. For the fill, I'm going to go ahead and type in .green. And for the outline, I will make it black. And that will remove the preview errors. The next thing we have to do is go ahead and replace this with a Z stack. And we're going to have to go ahead and pick an image. And this can be any image you like, of course. But I recommend you take it from the system images. And I'm going to be using the system image of battery.0. And it's going to look like that. It's a very small battery icon. And we want to resize that. So we're going to call resizable and scale to fit, so it actually looks good on the screen. Then we're going to go ahead and provide a font, and here we're going to go ahead and call .headline with a weight of ultralight, so it becomes quite thin, because all of these symbols are actually fonts, which is great because we can edit it accordingly. And I want to give it a foreground caller of the outline. So just type in outline there. Next, we need to go ahead and provide a background. And inside this background, we're going to go ahead and create a rectangle. And this rectangle is what we're going to be using to fill our battery. And here we're just going to type in .fill with the caller of fill. And we want to give it a scale effect. And the scale effect is going to have an X and a Y coordinate. So for the X coordinate, we're going to provide the progress, and for the Y coordinate, we're just going to provide 1, since it should always be filled, and it should be set to .leading. And to very quickly explain how this works, right now we have, as you can see, a block that's going to the left since we want it to animate to the right. So we specify that it is .leading. So it's going to start over here. And we specify that we want it to move on X because we want it to go to the right. So that's why we specify X. If you have something that's facing upwards, you want to replace this with 1, and you want to put the progress in here so it goes upwards. And you also want to set this to bottom. So the progress is going to work upwards in that case. So scaled effect can be changed in many different ways. For this very specific example, we need it to be like this, so it goes from the left to the right. But as you can see right now, it's clipping and doesn't look so good. So let's go ahead and fix that. And to fix that, we need to go ahead and provide a mask on the image. And inside here, we need to provide another image. And this image is going to have the system name of battery.100. And a battery 100 is just a filled battery. So if battery 0 was empty, battery 100 is going to be filled. And you can actually go ahead and see this if you check in SF symbols. You can go ahead and type in battery. You'll see battery 0 and battery 100%. What's important is that the image we're masking is completely white. So this white section over here is going to turn green. And the battery 0 is the outline. So keep that in mind, that we have an outline and the image that we want to fill. And the mask is going to take exactly the same attributes as the original one. So go ahead and copy that and paste it inside. So it's going to fill the entire battery. But right below the mask, we're going to go ahead and give it a frame with a width of 200. and then we can just remove the rest of those attributes. So we get a smaller battery, and we're going to give it some padding. So that was the hard part. We created an image that we can mask just like this. And now every time we make some changes to the progress, it's going to fill up the battery. But I wanted to take it a step further by providing some text. And here we can go ahead and do that. Since we're still in a Z stack, we can go ahead and type in / interpolation, the integer value of self.progress times 100. And we're going to add a % symbol right after. So as you can see, it now says 70%. And we're going to go ahead and change the foreground color to white, although it would be better to add a property here so you could edit this to black and white depending on dark mode and light mode. But for now, we're just going to leave it at white. And we also want to make sure that any animations only happen to the green bar and not to the text. So we're going to go ahead and provide nil for the animation, which just prevents it from receiving animations. But that's not entirely true, because we also want to provide an opacity animation. And to do that, we just have to pass in self.opacity. So any other animations are going to be rejected, but any animation that has to do with the opacity is going to be accepted. And the final thing inside here that we have to do is make sure that the text appears. So we need to go ahead and provide a task. And this task is going to be a dispatch queue.main.async after deadline, which will be .now plus 0.2 seconds. So in 200 milliseconds, it's going to execute the following after we create this view. And we're going to provide a with animation. And the only thing we have to do inside here is set the self.opacity to 1. So this over here just gives it a 200 millisecond delay, so it just pops up a bit later after the animation. And that's actually all we have to do in the battery view. Now we can go ahead and open our content view and make sure your emulator is still running. And here we can go ahead and initialize a variable at state private var progress, which is going to be set to 0.0 initially, so we can get the sweet animation effect of it slowly loading. And here we need to go ahead and add a Z stack. And the Z stack is going to hold a color.black with an opacity of 0.9. And it's going to ignore the safe area. So this is just to simulate a dark mode, for example. And we need to go ahead and create a V stack, which is going to contain the battery view, if I can spell that. So battery view, which takes a progress of a binding value. So progress, the fill is going to be .green, and the outline is going to be white for this case. So right now our batteries are at 0%. And we need to go ahead and provide a slider. And the slider is going to have a value of the progress in the range of 0.0 to 1.0 with a tint of .green and a padding. Now the only thing we have to do here is call .onAppear and initialize the value here of progress with some dummy value such as 7 or 5. And ideally you want this to actually be a battery percentage, but for this we're just going to use this dummy value. So we're going to go ahead and type in with animation, and we're going to call an interpolating spring. I want it to have a very nice spring effect, and we're going to set the stiffness to 20 and the damping to 8.0. And it's important you play around with these values to get a very nice spring effect. If the damping's too small, you're going to get a really big spring, and the higher the stiffness, the faster it goes. So just play around with those values. It's a lot of fun when you're working with these animations. I recommend it. But with that animation in place, we can go ahead and set the self.progress to be 0.7. And we can also resume the preview if you want to see the % sign, of course. And as you can see, it loads quite nicely. It goes up to 70%, and you can change it with the slider, and it has a very nice counting effect here. So that just about covers how to create this masking effect with a battery. You can do this with many other things such as a rectangle or a circle. The sky's the limit. The only thing you should really note is that you need to have an outline of an image and an image that's filled, so that you can actually fill the image with your mask, which is this green box over here. Because once you have that, you can change it to whatever you like. You can even go ahead and change the fill color to something such as orange, depending on the battery state. And it looks wonderful, the animation's nice, and it's also highly reusable. So that's great. we've completed our battery view. And with that being said, as always guys, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.